I know the Latin American family is very, very strong. How do families view, children or brothers, sisters, whoever, who go on mission?
They usually think we're crazy.
Okay. Sometimes in the North, this is a common sentiment as well.
Yeah, I think that most parents who have missionary children think we're crazy, regardless of where you're from. But so in order to explain this, so I'm 27, but if I lived in Honduras, I would still live with my parents because my family is not as much as it used to be, but still somewhat a source of life. Like, they'll provide for my house, somewhat for housing, somewhat for food, stuff like that, where I don't have to worry about that. But it's also a cultural understanding that why would you move out before you're married?
Right.
Why would you spend money? Unless you go to a different city for work or for studying, right? But when I'm at home, I lived at home last year for an entire year. I was at home with my parents. It was hard for me, but that was the expected cultural thing, and there was no need for me to go against it. And so it's especially hard, especially for families who are very traditionally Latino. Traditionally, what has happened is that, let's say grandma and grandpa had a certain amount of land, not too big, not too small. Well, they had their house in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Then, let's say they had 3 children. Well, the children will make their houses on the same land of property, like on the same property, and so on and so forth, until there's literally no more space for anyone to build. And even so, you might start building up instead of moving away.
Right.
So it's a very close-knit group of people that you see often, that you have to spend time with often, and it's pretty hard for our families because we're not even expected to leave home. For example, in my own family, my aunt lives with my grandma. Her children still live there. My cousins are about 26, 25. Like, there is no foreseeable, like, they're not about to get married anytime soon, so they're not about to leave anytime soon. And even when they get married, they have to choose, are we going to live there or are we not? Like, some people still choose.
And if they move, they're probably not moving very far, I would assume.
No. Why would you do that? Right? So with family, it's hard. And I think that it's hard not just to leave them. It's really hard to explain why you're leaving them. And that, to me, I think is the hardest part. Because I think that my family sometimes just sees this as like, they love Jesus, they're Christian, but sometimes they just see it as me being rebellious, going against the system, being like the odd one out, and even, just not loving them as well as I should, which is hard because that's not necessarily true.
Okay, so I might be about to overemphasize something, but that's just because the average listener might not be aware of like how family pressure relates, because coming from an individualistic society, we kind of do whatever we want without understanding the sense of like generational obligation.
Right.
So your parents came from Vietnam to the United States. They fled a war. They've put you through college to some degree or another.
Well, some of them. America put me through college.
Or at least expected you to go through college.
Yes.
Okay.
The government.
And you did some kind of, what kind of degree did you do?
It was
in
a
college?
business degree.
Business degree, okay. So all of this is respectable.
Yeah.
And now you come home and you say, Mom and Dad, I'm going to be a missionary.
Right.
How does that sit with your family?
Yeah, my dad isn't a believer, so he doesn't make sense of it. Like, to him, he thinks I'm crazy. So that's that. But my mom, who has growing up going to church and know the context, right? She was like, why do you want to be American? Is that, it was a very, this is what Americans do, or someone has convinced you to do this, because that's not, it doesn't seem logical. To her, it didn't seem logical. she thought I was doing it for my esteem, my own. Maybe she thought at one point I wanted to be a martyr or something. And I was like, no, I never said that. I wanted to do that. But to die is to gain. No, sugar. But what I think she was saying is like, I want you to be saved. Like, I want you to be here. But some of it was like, you just want to do your own thing. You want to like pursue your own thing, not like what or honor our family or whatever. Because then you're seen as poor. You're seen as like all these other beggar and stuff.
Yeah.
And
So they see the choice for missions as kind of a manifestation of individualism just by itself.